Well, good afternoon, kiddos. I've had a busy morning. You probably thought I dropped off the planet because I haven't posted any assignments. So I'm going to probably get to this one, and tomorrow I'll do a few more. But I'm going to be reading in the Year of Miss Agnes, and you can see that I'm on our evidence collection box. And my goal for you guys today is to be adding some evidence here, and we'll see if I can help out with one and you do another, or maybe you'll do them. Okay, so again, what we're looking for is we're looking for evidence to support this idea, this theme, that a pioneer is someone who continues to persevere. Persevere means to work hard despite hardship. Hardship meaning difficult things. Okay, so let's get down here to the chart. And I'm on page 69 or chapter 11. So let's get started. One day, Miss Agnes made a long line on the wall with skinny white paper from Anderson's adding machine. And then she put numbers on the line to show how the years went. The numbers went backward till they got to the 0, and then they went forward. The picture of Robin Hood was at the 1100 number. And then whenever we had history, we'd put another picture up. 1948, that was us today. And 1938 was a war picture. So again, this gives us context about when this takes place. 1948 is right after the war, okay? And by the war, I mean World War II. Miss Agnes made a picture of bombs dropping on England for that. And down at the end, the other end, she made a picture of cavemen, the long ago people, and a picture of Russians coming to Alaska in the 1700 place. It was good to have that line. We could see how long ago things were happening with it. It made my thinking go straight. She's giving context of time and history and things that happened to the kids too. When the line was almost filled up, we played time machine. We pretended we had a time machine like the guy in this book Miss Agnes told us about. And we'd pick a time to go back to, and we'd pretend to land in a long time ago, and then we'd tell everyone what we saw when we were there back in time. That was really fun. Kenny made us laugh and laugh when he talked old-timey like Robin Hood, and then methinks I see a damsel and stuff like that. Hey, but you had to know what we'd learn to play time machine, because everyone would ask questions and try to trip you up. Miss Agnes never gave us tests. She just had us do things like this that made us remember what we learned. So it was really harder than a test, but it didn't seem like it somehow. Sometimes in the middle of anything, she'd turn to us and say, "Name the continents," or "What do you call animals without backbones?" Any kind of question she'd ask us from what we'd studied before. That's clever. So instead of it being a test, you just kind of ask a question and see what kids would remember. It made everything stick in our minds better when we knew she was going to do that any old time. Even the little ones could remember really hard things that way. After school sometimes, I'd go over to Grandpa's and I'd tell him about the stuff we learned in history and science. He really liked me to do that. I asked Miss Agnes if I could have some of that skinny paper, and I made Grandpa one of those timelines too. I couldn't make the pictures on it good, like my teacher, but after I told Grandpa, he knew what they were supposed to be. Grandpa never knew anything about the Romans and people like that. When I made that skirt, the thing that they wear in my picture, he laughed and laughed. So what that tells me is that Grandpa had never learned about ancient history. That's kind of an aha for me. This idea of someone being older than me, but not having the same history that I would know because I've been to school, and I'm pretty sure Grandpa hadn't been to much school. He couldn't read hardly any, but he liked to look at that thing a lot. Grandma kicked up a fuss though and said she didn't want that paper thing on her wall, and so Grandpa rolled it up, and we would look at it when she wasn't there. He would show his friends when they came to visit, and they liked it just as much as he did. Grandpa put the year he was born, 1878, on the line, and his friend old George put the year we moved from Dolby. The picture about World War I was the one they talked about the most because I'd written under it when Miss Agnes had put on her timeline, 10 million dead, 21 million wounded. Wow, that's some numbers and stats. So what I learned there is that in World War I, so about 100 years ago, it says that 10 million people died in that war and 21 million wounded. Wow, you guys, that's a huge number, and that's an aha for me. They couldn't get over that. Here they were trapping and hunting and raising their families. And away on the other side of the world, this thing was happening, and they hardly knew because there weren't any radios then. Grandpa doesn't like to stay in the village so much. He likes to be out in the woods all the time, but he's too old to go by himself. So he and the other men sit around together and drink tea and talk about the old times. We like to sit and listen to that, us kids. Grandpa remembers when there were lots and lots of white men in the country, the ones who came to Wiseman and other places to get gold. The Indians helped lots of them when they got in trouble, like when they're out on the trail and they nearly froze. And sometimes those white men helped the Indians too, like when someone got sick. One of those men had the medicine for it. They got along good together, Grandpa says. A lot of people around here have grandpas who were those old miners, but Grandpa still works hard. He sets a net under the river ice in the winter, and he helps Plasker's mom with her fish trap. People give him moose and caribou, but he snares rabbits and ptarmigan to eat, and he and Grandma go to fish camp with us in the summer. What he misses is when he and his father would go way up north to hunt mountain sheep or caribou or moose. Those were his best times, he says. There weren't any moose or caribou around our village in the old days. They hardly saw them, so they had to travel a long way to get to them. He tells us the stories his mama told him about before there were any white men in the country. His mama and them used to make a sod house, half underground, and they'd live in there in winter and be just warm. And they traveled all the time to find meat to eat. No villages then. And when they started a school in Alcatet, his mama told him to go to school. She wanted him to learn to read and talk English. She was smart that way, he says. She knew he would need to know that stuff, the way things were changing. And she thought maybe if he went to school, he'd have an easier life than she'd had. He went the first time when he was 12. He says they didn't use paper then, only slates to write on with chalk. And that would be like a whiteboard, only it was be made out of like black, and you'd write on it with chalk. So we can see there's a difference from when he was a boy to when Fred is a girl, that when he was a boy, they didn't have paper, they used chalkboards. He went there for a couple of years, just in the fall before winter camp. So he only got through just the first grade work. Wow. That's why he liked to hear about all the stuff he'd missed in the other grades. So I'm gonna actually, let me see if I can keep going. I think I'll stop here and then I'll continue on with another video because I want to make sure I don't want to rush. Okay, I will see you guys in just a little bit.